Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you after the Sunday edition of the Divisional Playoffs on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube. And I would say that this last game, which will be talked about for a long time as Buffalo now wipes the sweat from its brow and heads to Kansas City to try and see if they can keep the Chiefs from their date with history. And the Eagles, the same thing. Very happy and content to get out of the snow and get away, because that game looked like it could be headed for a disaster after that Nakua catch on the sideline, put them inside the 20-yard line, and then two big defensive plays, including a third down sack, which was enormous by Carter. Really saved the day for the Eagles. There's so much to get to in this game. Let me get to it. But before I do, let me give you just the big picture. This was maybe the strangest divisional playoff weekend I can ever remember. All four losing teams outgained the other team. I don't think you go back, someone can do that. Go back and research it. I don't think that has ever happened in the history of divisional playoffs. The odds on it are astronomical. 4 games, and the losing team outgained, and some of the games by a substantial margin. Before I get to the analysis of today's games, especially the second game, Texans outgained the Chiefs 336 to 212. Now, there were no turnovers in that game, but the Texans had a disaster on special teams. They gave up 3 points on that first kickoff, including the 15-yard penalty. They botched 7 points on kicks, had 2 huge penalties that led to 10 points from the Chiefs, those Mahomes penalties, which were absurd. Add that up, and the Chiefs win the game with 212 yards of offense. 212 yards. The Texans had 336. The Lions became the first team in NFL history to have 300 yards passing and 200 yards rushing and lose a playoff game in the history of the NFL. They had 521 yards of offense and lost. 521 to 481. They were -5 in turnovers. The Rams outgained the Eagles despite Barkley's 205 yards, because that's the only yards they had in the game. But they had 2 big turnovers that were incredibly costly. 2 big ones. Those were incredibly costly. The Eagles' extra point might have cost somebody out there some money. They missed 2 extra points. So instead of winning by 8, they win by 6. Depending when you got that game, you either pushed or you lost. You didn't win, because that game was never 5.5. It was 6 a lot. It was 6.5, and I think it might have closed at 7. So depending where you bet that, you might have got a push, but that was all you were getting there. And then this game, which was open Buffalo 1, closed Ravens 1. The Ravens outgained the Bills 416 to 270 with 3 turnovers. A huge pass interference call before the half, which gave them a furthest down on third down. And instead of a long field goal attempt, they wound up with a touchdown, which put the Ravens in a big hole, which they climbed out of, but missed their first 2-point conversion on a terrible play. And then we know what happened at the end of this game, which we'll recount in a little while. Let's get to the Eagle game first. The weather was a big factor, no question. It took the Rams a while to even get their receivers in the game. Really didn't happen until the last 4 minutes. When they got down 13 points, they figured out how to get their receivers in the game. Quick huddle, go quick, boom. All of a sudden, they tired out the defenders, tired out the pass rush, and were able to move the ball down the field, get a touchdown, and then almost score again and almost win the game. But the Eagles got a great performance from Barkley. Eagles got basically almost all their yardage on 3 plays. The Barkley run for a touchdown and the two Barkley runs for a touchdown and the Hurts run for a touchdown. That's it. They didn't have anything other than that. But they win the game. And then obviously the showdown, the great match. Now, let's first give Buffalo credit. Their defense did a nice job making the Ravens uncomfortable in the first half. The Ravens came out and looked more like the Ravens in the second half. I don't know if the field condition was one of the reasons why Lamar Jackson, or he was injured, one or the other, because on that hit out of bounds, because he did not run but one time after that hit on the sideline. He only ran 6 times in the game. Last week he ran 15. At times he seemed very reluctant to run. I wonder if he was nursing an injury, or he just didn't like the field, or felt carrying the slick ball on the field was going to be a detriment. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But it wasn't like they didn't move the ball. They moved the ball in the second half. They just dug themselves a first half problem. Now, Allen really just had to manage this game. He made a couple of runs on 4th down. He got 2 running touchdowns. But let's be honest, they didn't need Allen to really do a lot in this game. He only had 120 yards passing. He only had 20 yards rushing. The Bills only put up 6 points in the second half, 2 field goals. And the Ravens, well, they scored 15 points, but it was the mistakes. It was the 2-point conversions that killed them. The first 2-point conversion that would have tied the game at 21, where they were dominating the game with their running game. That touchdown before they went for that 2-point conversion was a dominant display right down the field. Boom, 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 right down the field. The bottom line is the Ravens, I don't have a problem saying this. I don't even think Buffalo would have that much problem with it. The Ravens were probably the stronger team. They were probably the better team. But you know what? They made too many mistakes today. They turned the ball over 3 times. And then when they hold for a field goal and they're only down 5, here they come again with plenty of time in the game. And he hits Andrews, who's running free on the 50-yard line with the ball, and they're in business. And he gets the ball punched out. And then, obviously, they hold again. And they're down 8. And Lamar comes down the field, makes the plays, makes a great play on the run to Wallace, makes the plays, scores the touchdown, does it very matter-of-factly, and now is about to throw the 2-point conversion to Andrews. And Andrews, who is his favorite target, who is a very sure-handed player, who's just coming off a horrific fumble, now drops a 2-point conversion that will be remembered forever. I mean, can you have a bigger nightmare? Here you are, down 5 with the ball, driving in the 4th quarter of a divisional playoff game with so much pressure on your team because so much is expected. And you're running free with the ball, and you get the ball smacked out of your hands, and you turn the ball over. And then you have a chance for redemption. Lamar has a chance for the redemption after his spotty play for him. First time he'd had 2 turnovers in a year. The interception, which was a bad play, and then the fumble. They get it going in the second half. They are clearly dominating the game in the second half. The Bills don't know how to stop them in the second half. They are on their way into the end zone. They get the touchdown. And he hits them about 3 inches below the belt with a pass. And the always sure-handed Andrews drops the ball. The game started with a crazy drop by Henry, who could have run for a month. I mean, he had a play where it wasn't a perfect pass. He didn't get led. Lamar threw the ball where he had to stop and catch it, but it was a ball that any back puts in his back pocket and runs with it. And Henry, who's not the best receiver in the world, though, is wide open and is going to run forever. And he drops the ball. And that was pretty much the day for the Ravens. I give the Bills credit because in the first half, they made the Ravens pause. The blitz packages worked. Their running game worked a little. Cook made some plays. Davis made some plays. Shakir made some plays. Allen made some plays. So they dug themselves with the turnovers and the pass interference call. They dug themselves an 11-point deficit. But when they interviewed Harbaugh, he was extremely confident. He said, hey, Lamar just team at halftime. We're going to come back and win the game. Well, when they scored to make it 21-19, I thought they had completely taken charge of the game. But I did say to my wife, Ro, and everybody in the room, I said, this 2-point conversion psychologically means a lot. You need to get this. Hand the ball to Henry, who's just pounded down the field, and get it 21 up. And the Bills are really going to finally be under some pressure. And instead, they try some pass play. They send Henry out in a pattern, and they try a pass play, and the ball gets knocked down. So they don't tie the game there, which is a big boost for the Bills. And then they add a field goal. They get it to 24-19. But the Ravens now are rushing right back down the field. They have plenty of time left. There's about 8 minutes or 8 minutes left in the game as he hits the 50-yard line wide open. He's running sideways. I think he's figuring he can break a tackle and make some more yardage, and he gets the ball slapped out. And you figure they're dead. Well, they're not dead. They hold the Bills. The Bills do the right thing. Didn't go for it on fourth down. If they're getting stuffed on third down, they didn't go for it. They kicked the field goal. It was the right play to go up 8 because you can't get stuffed there on fourth down and have Lamar Jackson come down the field, stick it in the end zone, and beat you because your owner's going to fire you. You have to go up 8 there, and the worst that can happen is they have to score, they have to get a 2-point conversion, and it's overtime at the worst. Maybe you got a couple seconds to try and have Allen make a magical play. As it was, they kicked the field goal. The Ravens get their touchdown, and they botched the 2-point conversion, and the rest is history. The Bills don't care how they won this game today. They don't care about the Ravens. Why should they? Do they know they beat a really good team? Yes. Do they know they beat a team that's probably more dominant? Yes. Would the Ravens have had a better shot in Kansas City than the Buffalo Bills will? I think so. But you know what? That doesn't matter to anybody. The Bills are going to have a shot in Kansas City. And the key to the game is going to be exactly what the key to the game was last week. You have to make Kansas City pay for the fact that they have no tackles. Thuney gives them half a tackle. He's not a great tackle. He's a great guard. He's trying to play tackle. They aren't strong there. Now, they don't have pass rushes as good as Houston's. Few teams do. But they have to muster a pass rush on the edge. And if they do that, they can stay in the game against Kansas City. Everybody else has. But you know the Chiefs. They find a way. They're in this game for the 7th straight year. Now, we knew that whoever lost this Buffalo-Baltimore game was going to be devastated. They both had big seasons. We also knew that whichever quarterback was on the losing side was going to be devastated. And again, that falls to Lamar Jackson. His critics will say, oh, you see, he's still a regular season player. Did he have one of his dominant games today? No. Was he affected by the cold and ice and snow? Yes. He's a kid from Pompano Beach. I don't think he likes to play in that weather. But you know what? When the game was on the line, you didn't get vintage, unbelievably dominant, spinning and swinging and doing everything that Lamar Jackson usually does. But the bottom line is he made the plays. He got him down the field into the end zone. He got him down the field in the last 2 minutes into the end zone. And he should have set up a tie game with the throw to Andrews. So it's kind of like a half a deal with him. He wasn't dreadful, but he wasn't great. And he did turn the ball over 2 times for the first time this year. He didn't have the game you wanted him to have. If you're one of his supporters and you want to have him erase that tag, he didn't erase that tag today. He didn't make it where people are going to be chomping him up. They're going to be chopping Andrews up. But they're going to also give him some fallout for not winning, and they're going to give him some fallout for turning the ball over at all, because he didn't turn it over all year. And he didn't use his legs like he usually does. Now, again, I don't know what the story is there. Was it the field? Did he take a hit and he was hampered a little bit? I don't know. He did move his team in the second half. He did find the end zone in the second half. He brought them from 11 points down to where they were a 2-point conversion from even. He brought them back on a drive when they were down 5, which looked like they were about to take the lead, and they turned the ball over. And then he brought them down the field into the end zone, and he made the play on the 2-point conversion, and the tight end dropped it. Shades of Jackie Smith, if you know the play. From many years ago. Bitter defeat for the Ravens, who believed that they were the best team in the league. Their defense had been number 1 the last 7 weeks. Their running game had been unstoppable, although it wasn't unstoppable today. It was deadly in the third quarter, but it wasn't unstoppable. Lamar wasn't killing you with his legs. He didn't have 80 yards rushing. He had 30 yards rushing, or 39. Henry had 84. He didn't have, his 150. Did Lamar throw the ball for a couple of touchdowns? Yes. Did he make a couple of plays? Yes. Did he have, decent passing stats? 18 to 25 for 254, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not a bad day. It's not a great day. It wasn't vintage Lamar Jackson. It wasn't terrible Lamar Jackson. And the onus at the end is clearly on a very good player in Andrews. But don't let him take all the blame here, because there's a lot of stuff to line up. Dumb penalties, drops, 3 turnovers, huge drops to start the game and end the game. He played a bad game, and Buffalo didn't make any mistakes. They played clean. They didn't turn the ball over. The winning teams in these 4 games had 0, collectively 0 turnovers. The losing teams had 8 turnovers, and the one that didn't turn the ball over, the Texans, botched 2 kicks and an extra point and a kick return, and had 3 huge penalties that were all 15-yarders, of which 2 of them were horrific calls. The NFL cannot allow. Mahomes is a great player. He's on his way to being an immortal player. He doesn't need your help. Don't make it a mockery by calling penalties when anybody breathes on him. You got to let him play football. Let them earn this. There's this feeling now. And listen, Andy Reid, as anyone who's listened to the show knows, that Andy Reid and I have been friends forever. Love Andy Reid. I've rooted for him a million times. I don't root against the Chiefs. Never have. But I understand this growing, pervasive thought that the Chiefs get every flag, every call, every break, every week. Because you know what? It looks like that. It's got to stop. Especially when it comes to Mahomes, it's got to stop. Now, I understand Josh Allen puts his head down and mixes it up. And Lamar Jackson is a threat to make big plays all over the field. And I don't expect them to be treated the same way Mahomes is treated. But Mahomes makes plays with his legs. And he was making a play with his legs when he got the second penalty, and he wasn't even hit on the play. Stop making a mockery of the sport by trying to keep him upright. They're good enough. They don't need your help. You can't go in there if the other team thinking that you have to play against the officials too. And let's be honest, Houston got screwed. Any way you slice it, they made enough mistakes themselves, and they can kick themselves for their mistakes, but they got screwed. The Chiefs showed some vulnerabilities, as did the Eagles. And Washington is a team playing with house money and a quarterback who is loving this and is extremely dangerous. And then the other team that's going to be underdog, the Bills, hey, all they have is Josh Allen, who's one of the great players of the generation. So you got to like the Final Four. Do I feel bad that the Lions are not there? I kind of do. Because I wanted to see the scene when that city finally got to revel in this team getting there. And now you really have to wonder about them. Last year, they had a big lead in San Francisco, and San Francisco came back on them and won the game. And you said, okay, that was the Lions' initiation. Next year will be the coronation. Well, all year we waited for the coronation, but we know that they were beat up on defense. But they didn't lose last night because their defense was abominable. It wasn't good. They could have overcome that and won a shootout as long as they didn't turn the ball over and give up a pick six and turn the ball over four other times and have 12 men on the field on fourth down. Plus, you got guys on that team who are stars now, who are going to be coming up on second contracts and they don't want to get paid. So keeping that nucleus exactly the same is going to be hard. And they haven't had anybody leave that staff. That staff has been intact for years. Now that staff could lose both coordinators. So all of a sudden, you have a different coaching staff. You have a different chemistry. You have some changes to your core. You always have changes anyway in the NFL on your roster, but now you're going to have big changes because you got some guys you can't afford. They go to the second contract, they become stars, they want to get paid. And they got plenty of stars on that team. It's going to be a long, hard offseason for their quarterback. It's going to be a long, hard offseason for Lamar Jackson, who had an insanely good regular season, an utterly brilliant regular season. His play this year at the quarterback position was revolutionary. But he still has this nagging thing going on, just like Judge does with the Yankees. Oh, when are they going to perform in the postseason? When are we going to see it in the postseason? When are they going to bring what they dominate in the regular season to the postseason? Well, he thought he was ready to take that step today. and he dug himself a hole. And then he tried to climb out of the hole, and when he did, his teammates didn't cooperate. He helped dig that hole in the first half. He tried to dig them out in the second half, and his teammates didn't cooperate, especially one who was probably, if you ask him, one of his most dependable guys. He loves throwing to Andrews. Andrews is his favorite receiver. And an Andrews fumble and an Andrews drop, it's going to be a long offseason for Andrews. I feel for him, for any player who has to live with that. Because that town's, just like in Detroit, that town's going to be heartbroken. Difference is, Detroit, they lost fair and square. The Ravens are going to go home thinking, we were the better team when we lost. Doesn't matter. It's what's on the scoreboard that counts. The turnovers count. The dumb plays, the penalties, they count. The drops, they count. The Bills played a smart game. They backed Lamar and the offense on its heels in the first half. And when the Ravens got their feet and got into halftime and made their adjustments, because they're a good staff, and came out in the second half, and they were cooking. They knew they couldn't make any more mistakes. They could dig out of the hole, but that meant you were going to have to do everything right in the second half to overcome 11 points. You were going to have to make plays. You were going to have to play a clean half. You were going to have to make 2-point conversions. You were going to have to do everything you didn't do in the first half. And they did some of it, but then they missed a 2-point conversion, and they missed another 2-point conversion, and they turned the ball over. One or two mistakes too many. Doesn't matter. That gained them by 150 yards. Doesn't matter. No one cares. Buffalo goes on, you go home. You go home with a broken heart, but you go home. And you try to see if you can piece this together again. Every year it gets a little harder. And I'm sure, and I said this the other day, I thought the loser of this game between Lamar and Josh Allen was going to, be sitting somewhere the next couple of days saying, when is it my turn? We don't know if it's Josh's turn yet. He's got a big hill to climb. Beating Kansas City in Kansas City. Toppling those guys. Beating Mahomes and Chris Jones and Kelsey. And, of course, a game plan from Andy Reid. It's not going to be easy. As Pat Riley always said during these playoffs, there's winning and misery. And, boy, if you saw that Ravens sideline in the final seconds, you know what misery looks like. If you saw Campbell last night crying in the press conference, you know what misery looks like. If you saw Goff last night saying he was sorry to the fans of Detroit, you know what misery looks like. That's what makes these games dramatic. Weird, though, this weekend. The way things hinged in that Kansas City game on the number. The way things hinged in that second game, that first game today on the number. And the way things hinged crazy in that second game. Wild weekend. Really was. So now we're left with an upstart Washington team, which has already beaten Philadelphia. And for all their prowess, the NFC Central, the NFC North is gone. The NFC North is gone. The NFC East is here. So the Giants are looking up at the Dallas Cowboys and two teams that are in the NFC title game this week. So they got a little work to do. And two old friends meet again looking for a different script. Buffalo in Kansas City. They know their way around each other. Kansas City is in the game for the 7th time in a row, trying to make it back to the Super Bowl and complete a three-peat. That's the scenario. So Josh gets another shot, and Lamar gets to listen for another year about how he's just this magical regular season player and that he's not a postseason guy. Hey, only he can dispel that. No one else can do it for him. The only way you turn it around is to turn it around. Go there and have it work out the right way and hold the trophy up, then nobody can say it again. That's the only way it works. There's no other remedy. No one can do it for you. You got to do it yourself. The road is difficult. The plan's an easy one. You know what the plan is. It can't be any clearer. The road, though, it's fraught with all kinds of problems and all kinds of obstacles. It takes a long time to get there, to get back to the same spot and try the same thing again. Next January is a long way away. Tomorrow night, the National Championship Game. Notre Dame, heavy underdog to Ohio State. We will see it after the game. I told you before I like the Irish with the points. I think they have a shot. I think Ohio State's a better team. I think Notre Dame is a good team that plays great and knows how to win. And I think they can hang in this game. And they need cagey play out of their quarterback, and they have to make the plays at the right time. They can't turn the ball over and beat Ohio State, but Ohio State knows that, and everyone else knows that too. They can't be -2, 3. Because you know what? Hey, as somebody who texted me during the game said, hey, everything changes in the NFL except for one thing. Turn the ball over and you lose. Turn the ball over and you lose. Simple as that. You can't turn the ball over in big games. You can do a lot of things. You can't turn the ball over. We'll see you tomorrow.